the 40 degree temperatures we had. You said unity is in national interest. For a lot of people in Ireland, economically that might make sense. Is it possible that it could be in the national interest economically to have a united Ireland?
For sure. In fact, I would say, people often ask the question, can we afford it? People in the South, can we afford it? And there's a number of things I would say to that. And the first thing I would say is that we cannot afford to continue on the way that we are at the moment. We have 2 health services, 2 education services, 2 of everything on an island with 7.5 million population. It just doesn't make sense. But from an economic point of view, often you'll hear as well, I'm not going to go into huge detail on it, but you'll hear, the 10 billion subvention from the British government, and how could the South afford that. But if you break down that 10 billion, it works out about 1.5 billion when you take off national security, you take off pensions as well, that would continue. The same way if you're a British person living in the South, you can have, like I'd be entitled to a British pension myself from the time that I lived in London, or British people who lived in Spain and all that. So if you take out national security, pensions, those things, it's about 1.5 billion. And then you look at the benefits and the opportunities, particularly in relation to foreign direct investment, and looking at the drivers of foreign direct investment. If you have the whole of the island within the EU as well, you would also be looking at the EU in terms of, obviously there would be support from the EU as well, but just economically in having harmonisation of taxation and all that across the island, there are huge benefits there. Now, a lot of this has been modelled, so it's not just me saying. If you look at some of the reports that have been done by the ESRI, the Economic Research Institute as well, and indeed by other economists, you'll see that those benefits in very short period of time, you're at a break-even situation, and then you go on to a situation where there's prosperity across the island. So I can say with certainty that economically, leaving out all of the social aspects of it, we are better off in United Ireland, and we cannot continue on. We have paid a severe price for partition.
Fair enough. And okay, so you mentioned the social aspects. If we go on to the social aspects, what other positive, I suppose, advantages could United Ireland have from a social perspective as opposed to economically?
And you see, this is why I get excited about a united Ireland, because we have never had, since the foundation of the state, we inherited systems, but we've never had an opportunity to look at what our values are as an island, or what your values are in terms of the diaspora and people who have come from Ireland, and to shape something that serves the people, that shapes something that doesn't leave so many people behind, that shapes systems that where we get rid of the huge inequality gap that we have at the moment. So that's why I would say socially, as well as economically, and it's hard sometimes to disaggregate both of those things. They complement each other, that we have an island of people where people's interests come before other things, that we don't have systems there that are set up to serve themselves, or things that we have inherited and they have been incrementally changed along the way. And I think that's where the real excitement is, and that's why we're doing a lot of work with women and the Constitution to get to those hard to reach voices. So what would a united and new Ireland look like for a carer? What kind of a system would they want? What kind of an island would they want? What kind of an island do women want? What kind of an island do people with disabilities want? All of those things. Yeah. So those conversations are happening, they're very live as we speak, and the richness that's coming out of them is fantastic.
Yeah, you mentioned the current government and the current Taoiseach, and it not been putting party interest before 32 county republic essentially. Is that the only barrier to this? Is there anything that concerns you that this may not take place in a timeline that you would be satisfied with?
Well, I wish it had taken place years ago, so I'm already dissatisfied with the timeline. But I know what you're saying. I am, and I'm going to be really honest with you, I am disappointed with Fianna Fáil. Fianna Fáil how they're heading the Republican Party, and I would have expected an awful lot more from a Fianna Fáil Taoiseach, and we're not getting that. Now, I will acknowledge we have the Shared Island Unit, and there are certainly merits there. There's really good research being there. There's 2 billion allocated under the Department of Taoiseach in the Shared Island Unit for infrastructure projects as well, north and south. So it's not that nothing is being done, but much more needs to be done, and it needs to be driven under, and that's why we have said that we need a department under the Department of Taoiseach, and this is why we wanted to get into government dedicated to reunification and all of the things that we need to do for preparation for reunification as well. So I would see Fianna Fáil as lagging behind. I would give some credence to Fine Gael, Fine Gael, and since Leo Varadkar and some other individuals within Fine Gael that I work with as well. We very much recognise as a party, and Sinn Féin is leading the way, and I suppose always have led the way. I mean, our whole raison d'etre is obviously reunification of our island. But we very much recognise that we're not going to do this on our own. So we work in a very inclusive way, and we will work with anybody to make this happen. We want to draw people into the conversation. But just I'd say a final thing on the Taoiseach, I want him to set up a framework for the great work that's been done, the academic work and the work that's been done by other groups, that we've a framework for all the information, that we're not creating an industry around reunification, but that we're building on all the time, so we've additionality, so that the conversation and the answers to the questions are advancing all the time. So, sorry, I give long-winded answers. I'm going to give shorter answers.
It's not bad, it's not bad. Hugo mentioned my podcast, interview people who are Irish or consider themselves Irish and live in Toronto. I'll be interviewing a person this week who is 85 years old and spent the majority of his life on the island of Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland. Anglican background, recognise themselves as being British and Irish, and felt let down basically by what became the Republic and its erasure of what he believed was his history. The same obviously has taken place on the other side of the border with some of the people in this room, I'm sure. Compromises will have to be made. Where do you see those compromises coming from?
I suppose it's about having the conversation in the first instance. People can get fixated on, different aspects and say, well, become entrenched in different things. We do a lot of outreach as a party with unionists, with the Protestant loyalists and unionist community. I do a lot of conversations myself in terms of, a lot of them say to me, we're not afraid of a united Ireland. They will have that conversation. They want to know what it looks like. I have yet to meet a unionist Protestant or loyalist who doesn't want the best for their family now and for their families in the future. So I think it's about, I know you're asking me, it's about, I think the conversation is at, how are we going to make it together? And the conversation for unionists is, what is it going to mean for us? What is it going to look like for our family? I'm not avoiding the question in terms of compromise. Obviously there will be compromises, but I don't think you start off with a situation where, what are the compromises and we're not going there. Let's have the discussion. Let's look at the things that we do agree on, that we agree on economically and socially, and see how we can make them better on the island of Ireland.
I won't push you on flags and anthems and things like that. I'm sure that'll come later on.
You can ask my personal opinion. I'm very fond of the flag. That's all I'd say.
In terms of where we are, the majority of people in this room are living in Canada. North America and Europe, is there a particular role that they might play, the Irish diaspora or governments in those parts of the world, that may play in the potential future of United Ireland?
Oh, there really is. But in any key moment in history, the Irish diaspora, sometimes I think, because I was a member of the diaspora myself when I lived in London, I wonder, is it a suitable tag for us all when we live out of our own country? But absolutely critical. And I suppose the two critical things are putting pressure on the Irish government and on the British government to make this happen. I talk to British people all the time, and normal British people don't see the sense of Britain holding on to part of another island anymore. Just the ordinary people, of course we have a huge diaspora in Britain as well, who will play a key role. But I think it's about that, and it's about us having the conversations here as well. We have a great gathering here in the room today. All of you will have different networks, you'll work in different places, all of that. Have those conversations. about the interesting and exciting times and opportunities that are presented on the island of Ireland, and engage people in the conversation. I think that's what you could do, and be ready for when the referendums are announced as well, to mobilise people. But the British government and the Irish government listen to the diaspora, particularly in Canada and North America, and in Britain as well. So have your voices heard in doing that. And it could be just simple things, by writing letters, by ringing up your local radio stations, all of that. You'd see a lot of international academic work is done as well in that space. So I'd say for yourself, the university and all that, encourage reports to be done, encourage students to do their thesis on it, encourage PhD students to do the research on it. So everyone has a part to play, as we all know who said that.
Excellent, yeah. I heard you were a great Gaelic footballer in London.
I was, I did, I loved football, and I actually, you know what, I would say to the people who are involved in the GAA here, the GAA have a critical part to play in the reunification of our island. And I would say to you, use those, use is the wrong word, but engage the GAA in those conversations. It's happening at home. I'm delighted that Gerald Burns is president of the GAA at home. But yes, I mean, the GAA is so much part of our culture, our heritage. When I went to London, that's the first place I went to. My son is in London at the moment. Again, it's GAA all the time. And GAA will be critical in getting and winning a referendum on Irish unity, or 2 referendums on Irish unity. And also when you say about the governments and the part that they can play, we also need citizens' assemblies. So it's about encouraging the government. Like it's shocking that they haven't already have citizens' assembly. I think there may need to be a number of citizens' assemblies to get to the depth of some questions that we need answers, around an all-island health service, around education and all that. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we will. One final question. Is that okay? You give me the eyes there. We might, from a world stage, how will United Ireland look to the rest of the world, and what role could it play? Not just in something as simple as potentially having an all-island soccer team, for example, but even on a more deeper level, although that's important as well, of course. But on a world stage, what will United Ireland look like?
I think for our size, we're hugely important, Ireland. We're scattered all over the world. I think it would look like a progressive country that was at ease with itself and confident in itself in going forward, where we have an inclusive island, where we lead the way on so many things. I mean, our neutrality is being talked about at the moment. That is hugely important. As a neutral country, we have played a key role in peacekeeping around the world. I hope that will continue. So what would it look like? It would be a country that people want to come back to as well. And I know we had the conversation earlier on. How do you? So many young people and so many people have moved away. I want it to be a 32-county island where people really want to come back to, but I also, for people who have set up their homes in other places, I want it to be a country where people are really proud to say, that is where I came from, and that is where my ancestors came from. They are my roots, and that is my hope and my passion, because there are too many things at the moment that just don't work, either north or south, but we can make them work collectively across the island.
Thanks very much, Ross.
Thank you.
Thank you.